we try to create the space where we assume the people have skills and knowledge and know what to do. They just need like a sparring partner. The Dutch universities, they have a slogan that's called Room for Everyone's Talent. That would mean a little bit of the loosening of the different staff categories and just thinking in terms of the shared mission of a university. Although posting stuff on the internet isn't probably the way to make a big impact on a structural level, but I think people who read it feel seen.
Hello there, I'm Sarah McCluskey, and this is Research Adjacent. Each episode, I talk to amazing research-adjacent professionals about what they do and why it makes a difference. Keep listening to find out why we think the research-adjacent space is where the real magic happens. Hello and welcome to episode 79 of the Research Adjacent podcast. We are back to the usual interview format for this episode, and I feel like if you spend any time at all hanging around on LinkedIn, you will probably have already come across today's guest, Johanna Stadlbauer. With a mission to make academia kinder and more fun, her posts certainly embody that, blending compassionate advice with the odd horse or elk picture. And if you're not already connected with her, then use the link in the show notes to go and find her now. Johanna also brings this spirit to her day job, which is running the Research Careers Campus at the University of Graz in Austria. Their holistic development programme for early to mid-career researchers offers everything from microgrants and training to writing retreats and yoga sessions. You can get a good sense of Johanna's ethos in the lineup for their Communities of Curiosity Festival in April, and again you'll find a link to that in the show notes as well. In our conversation, we talk about how she transitioned from anthropology research to researcher development, the ethos and activism that underpins what she does, and why free pizza is always a good way to bring people together. Listen on to hear Johanna's story. Welcome along to the podcast, Johanna. It is fantastic to have you here as a guest. And I wonder if we could begin by just hearing a bit about who you are and what you do.
Yes, thank you so much, Sarah. I'm very excited because I've been following your podcast and following you for quite a while. So I feel very honored that you give me these 30 minutes to talk about myself today and to have this conversation with you. So my current job is I lead a unit for researcher development. And we work with people from PhD candidates, actually earlier than that, master students who would be interested in doing a PhD. A lot of our bread and butter, but generally we develop from PhD candidates to tenure track staff. And we offer them events, funding, small micro grants, networking opportunities, more structured programs, retreats like the writing retreat, networking opportunities, and or normal skills workshop, which are 1 or 2 days, and also a listening ear and quick and easy advice if they shoot us an email, or longer term brainstorming sessions, anything they need to make the next step in their career. And so I lead this unit, which is called Research Careers Campus and was established on the 1st of April this year. And before that, I was in the same team, but responsible for establishing the postdoc office, which still exists, just now as part of this unit. And my colleagues or my team will be soon people. They're all researcher developers, and we're also recruiting an administrative officer or operations professional right now to help us with the 40 plus workshops we do a year and sending over all that funding, all these mini grants for the people to do their research trips and organize conferences and so on. So that's my job. So maybe just for context, the University of Graz is in Austria and is Austria's second largest university. It's been around for many hundreds of years, and it has 30,000 students, and it has about 4,000 staff members, 3,200 academic staff and 4,700 staff overall.
Yeah, so it's a big operation. Yeah, fantastic. And you said that this Research Careers Campus is a new unit, a new thing that's in existence. What was the rationale behind it? Why did the university want to set up a unit like this?
So since 2011, we had services for PhD candidates. That was roughly the time in Austria where the first of these services were made. The first was made at the University of Vienna quite a few years earlier, I think maybe 2008. And then we came, I think, second. And that was the time of the Salzburg principles and of, in general, thinking about how to structure doctoral education to create well-rounded researchers and also well-rounded professionals for other sectors. Basically, what is doctoral education for and how do we do it so that we create excellent talent. And after that, I'd say was the time of the postdocs. So in Austria in 2016, the first association was formed that would care for this later career stage. And then we came in 2022 was when we established the postdoc office, and now in our higher education context is the time for the mid-career researchers, let's say. As far as I can understand the trends, we've managed to get the university on board to also cater now to people who are currently fulfilling tenure track agreements so that they can be made permanent, and also try to think of an even later career stage and how can we engage with researchers who are already rather established in their careers but might still want good professional development. And you asked me before we talked what else is around in terms of staff development, and our university has had leadership development. Many universities have from the staff development unit, so that's attached to HR, and that's been always around. So this support for the tenure track phase and for PIs has been always in existence, only it is a smaller subsection of the general staff development and HR operations. And we are now, since 2025, basically the central institution for this academic career support.
Yeah.
So we all have a background ourselves in research, and we are try to be on eye level with the researchers if they want it.
It makes sense. You've said that it's now, it's come together because of this understanding that it's not just early career researchers that need support, it's more mid-level senior researchers as well who need professional development. And certainly there's some situations I've been in where you find yourself thinking, yeah, it's not really the younger ones that need this training. Some of the older ones definitely need this training as well. But yeah, I think it is interesting, that direction of travel. I think I've noticed that in the UK as well, as people starting to say, why are the PhD students and the early career researchers getting everything? What about other people? And one thing that I think I'm particularly interested in is not just what about the mid-career and senior researchers, but what about all the people who are working to support the research as well? So people like you, people like researcher developers, what professional support are they getting? Is that something that's on the radar at all in Austria?
So we have no technician commitment or something like that. And I don't think we have as of yet a large, that's not actually true. There have been already, since the doc services at the university, so the PhD services started, also professional networking activities, for example, professionals in doctoral education, as it was called then. So that's started, I think, in Austria and is all over Europe. And now this Pride network has also spawned one for postdoc development professionals. So the awareness and associations are certainly there. And in terms of where can we get our own development from our own institutions, that would always be within HR and staff development. So they offer the normal, what's called internal development opportunity, workshops from project management to leadership. So for example, my colleague Gerald and me, since we are now head and deputy head of this unit, we were just enrolled in this normal leadership development at our university. And now we had the pleasure of doing a leadership workshop with new PIs. They are all together. All the staff groups get developed together in terms of leadership, and that's been going for a long time as well. So I suppose in Austria, if you are a research professional services person, you'd get your professional development from your own HR staff development unit, and also within European and German-speaking networks. So there is another called Uniwind, which is an association of all the graduate centers in the German-speaking countries. Austria and Switzerland are associated partners, so we can also go to their yearly meetups where all the people in our job get together who work with researchers. So when I came here, which was in 2020, the team that has been here since 2011, they would be part of all the relevant networks and would regularly get professional development from these networks. Another one is Coimbra, which is a network of many universities in Europe, and they also have a working group for doctoral education. And also there's university alliances, so the European University Alliances. Every university in Europe is in one of these alliances, and there are, if you have a working group in your alliance for PhDs and postdocs, you will meet your opposites at the other universities, and that's also a form of professional development.
Yeah, oh, that all sounds really useful. Yeah, it's great to know that it isn't just the researchers that are getting all the attention. There's also something for the whole research community, because that's how I like to think of it, as a whole team that does the research rather than just the researchers. So we first connected via LinkedIn, and I particularly love that your kind of tagline on LinkedIn is to make academia more fun and more kind. Tell me a bit about that and how you're bringing it into the work that you're doing now.
That stems a bit from my own experience as a postdoc and from my own experience going through the different contracts I had in academia. I graduated with a PhD in 2014, and I was a PhD candidate employed from 2012 on. And no one ever told me much about how to do stuff. And I was always the only PhD or postdoc at my department. So I took part in all the women's empowerment programs and tried to build peer networks and tried to learn from modeling what other people did. And sometimes I would get rejected when I wanted to do something collegial or when I wanted to do something just for the sake of it, because people had the milestones they had to achieve and couldn't do the collegial solidarity type thing that I wanted to do. And also, I was really stressed out by the workload. And so when I came back to the university in this role I'm having now, or in this role I had before I came into this leadership role, I thought, how will I survive being confronted with all these stressed academics, of which I was one just a few years ago? And I just make this work that I do and my communications and the spaces that we create as relaxing as possible. And I was in, for example, a women's network, which was meant to be like an accountability group where you would push yourself for the next career steps. And I got so stressed out in this group because they were always telling me, you need to be more firm with your boss, or you need to do this and this and set your boundaries. And that that pushed me almost to the brink of out with all that other stuff I had. Not that this group had a part in that, but the messaging you have to do didn't help me. So that's what I try not to do. And we try to create the space where we assume the people have skills and knowledge and know what to do. They just need like a sparring partner, and they need a good pizza, and they need 3 nights in a hotel so that they can focus on their writing, and they maybe need some sauna and yoga, and they need some fun enjoyment where they can be together and also build good networks. So we never do anything where you wouldn't get something tangible out of it, but we always try create an atmosphere that's somehow nourishing and not stressing people out. And we offer many external coaches and trainers, and we try to select them so that they have messages that focus on the innate talent and skills and motivation of the people, and less on like it's a rat race and you will not survive if you don't work 60 hours. And also, so we look at the good things, the good life, the nourishing aspects, the joy in your work, and how we can create a space where people can tap into that basically without We also talk about the bad things and the challenging things, but we don't say this is necessarily the way it needs to be. And for example, we will have people will approach me and say, I've experienced an instance of power abuse in my last job. Can you tell me if I could talk to someone to find out what actually happened? So people know that they can approach us for the hard things, for the burnout type things, for the people not doing their duty towards you, for stress and overload. They know that they can talk to us about it, but we don't go around and say academia is only for the very hard people or something.
Yeah. So, and how is that received? To me, it sounds amazing. I mean, I think some people listening might already know that I'm a yoga teacher. I'd be like, yes, sign me up for all of this stuff. But how do people react coming in? Because that's potentially quite different to what people expect from a professional development program.
They can get their normal workshops on how to become tenured, and they can get €2,000 for a conference or for a research trip, and some only want to €2,000. That's fine. If you are in a very vibrant lab and your PI takes care of your journey and you just need a further €2,000, you can get it from us. And if you need a coaching with someone who really pushes you to the next step, you can also get it from us. But if you are seeking for some feminist academic sisterhood, you can also get it from us. So I haven't had, I suppose the people who feel this is different, they'll just take the money and the workshops, and they will still come to the pizza because pizza is networking and everyone likes a good free pizza.
Absolutely.
And even people who are here a very short amount of time will find their way to us and will get the message very quickly that they can talk about these things, or that they can meet people, or that they can do startup groups to do together. So we have this writing group that's open every Friday, and people come up with all sorts of other groups, and we also support this peer grouping a lot. So there's like mothers in science. We try to give them, for example, money for speakers, or we try to give them the space to meet, or we pay for a buffet. There's Open Science Graz. There's many other self-built organizations where we just try to support a little bit. So people who are into that and get the message that they can get it here.
There's options for everybody depending on their preferences, which sounds really important, because that's one of the most important things about professional development, isn't it? Is that everybody finds their path and they get the support that they need, because it isn't a one size fits all kind of thing. Yeah. Excellent. You've said there, you've hinted at the fact that you were a researcher in the past. Tell us a bit about your journey, what you did and how you've ended up where you are now.
Yes. So I've already said, so I'm an anthropologist, a cultural anthropologist, which means you do qualitative research and you talk to people about their lives, and you're interested in the everyday, and you're also interested in the things like capitalism and larger scale societal power structures, let's say. So I think that prepares one very well for everything. And my PhD research was actually on expatriates, so people who work in international companies who get sent around and do these 1 to 3 year contracts abroad and bring their family with them. So in that sense, I know already from empirical research how it is to move every 3 years. And it was also, I had a gender studies component in there that also relates to what I do right now, because academia and inequalities are very much should be thought together if you think about careers. So you have to think about who gets to do which things and which people maybe are actively hindered by the way the system is right now. So I'd say that PhD and the research topics I did prepared me a little bit for this. And what led me to this professional path was all these peer grouping activities I did, I think, and all the trainings I took that the university offered already to researchers, because before the professional research and development units were built, we've had women's empowerment units for about 30 years, and they did everything from leadership development to trying to fix the leaky pipeline by giving you mentorship opportunities and all of that. So I took every opportunity that they offered, and I also model myself a little bit after the person who was the main figure in our University of Graz equality office, because she had this one-on-one interest in you, and she would just also open her networks to you, and she'd also take no shit. So she would be like, if you don't show up to one of the workshops, you're on my blue list. And so that's good. If you know who you are engaging with, you are really taking the opportunities they give you also seriously, because you know who will think about you not showing up to that workshop.
Yes.
And so through a mentoring program there and through the interventions of this woman, I was also able to make the step out of academia when I quit my postdoc job that I got after my PhD job, and set myself on the path to creating more educational programs from research. So after I decided not to continue with my postdoc, I switched to work with NGOs where we would do research on violence prevention and then make training programs for professionals from this research. And then I worked in equality offices as well at 2 different universities, one in Germany and one in Austria. And in Austria, I was responsible for starting a project towards a non-binary university. So how all areas of the university could recognize that there are people who are neither men or women, and how that would work in IT, how that would work in teaching, and so on. And that was a very short project. And the other one was a longer project about creating a portal against sexualized harassment on campus. And that also necessitated going through the whole institution, from the rector to IT service to the deans to individual researchers, and see how they position themselves against sexualized harassment, and then build an informational portal that people could get information for if they are affected themselves, if they want to be an ally to someone who is affected, if they want to create environments that are a culture of care against this. So I did some organizational development for a few years, and then I got a maternity leave cover in 2020 in this doc service here, in the unit that served then doctoral researchers, and then was tasked by the man who is now the president of the Austrian Science Fund, who was then the vice rector for research, with building up postdoc services. And then after I had done that successfully, we widened our remit, and I was promoted to be the leader of this unit we have built now.
Yeah, it really makes sense. Everything from the research that you did. I know that sometimes when we look at our careers, you go, oh, it went all over the place. But to me, it really makes sense. You clearly had this really deep interest in helping people to progress, whether that's going right back to the impact that moving around with jobs has on people, up to the impact that gender has on how people show up in the workplace and how the workplace accepts and support those people. So it makes sense that you've ended up doing career related type stuff now. Does it feel like it makes sense to you, or is that just looking back it makes sense?
I know my job that I have right now is the mix of everything I did before. So in that sense, it makes sense. So there's really nothing I did that doesn't fit into this job. Basically created this job myself, so it's not a surprise that it encompasses everything that I like to do. And I wouldn't say I have an innate love of helping people. I would maybe more say I have an innate love of talking and writing and creating knowledge and imparting it, and also engaging with people and doing stuff collaboratively and getting to set my own agenda a little bit. But obviously my job is to help people very much.
No, that's really fascinating because yeah, so it's almost like you approach all this career related stuff then maybe from a slight remove. Then you're more taking a kind of cooler, more theoretical approach to it than necessarily just in there to help people. Yeah, that's fascinating. Love it. I often say to people that doing a maternity cover is a really good way to get a foot in the door. And I think, yeah, you've proved it. But to be in a position where you've essentially created your own job is fantastic. I've on occasion been in that position myself, and it can be a very satisfying place to be. Although it isn't always sunshine and roses, is it? Isn't always exactly how you expect, even when you design your own job.
No, so the maternity cover was actually, you asked when we talked about beforehand what we would talk about, there is also a bullet point called challenges you faced. And
Yes.
one of my bullet points for that is maternity covers, because I was always a bit stressed out when I had a temporary role, and especially a maternity cover in Austria is you don't actually know how long the contract will be until the person has birthed their child. And then they get to determine how long they are out, and that sort of, so you have a few times that your contract duration is being renegotiated depending on the needs of the person who is on leave. I always was really proactive in what I want out of this maternity cover and what I would like for myself afterwards. And I know when they employed me in 2020, someone told me, oh, this will not lead to anything. But thankfully, we were able to make it lead to something, and in no small part from my advocacy and in showing the hard work that I did. I think that's also the key there. And in fact, my boss at that time told me she was a little bit overwhelmed by me advocating for myself so often, because I came regularly and said, so what do you think needs to change that we get another position in here? And yes, you have to strike a balance in that you don't piss off your superiors by being too proactive, but also show them there is actually something I could do here. And there is a need for that in that institution.
Yeah. Oh, interesting that you might be perceived sometimes as being too proactive. That's not something that people often complain about. Employers often complain
Well,
about.
it says more about me, I think.
Ah.
Because at that time I was already 35 or 36, and I thought what I actually want is a permanent role, and I would like this to be here. And so I was also more communicating in, see, these are the conditions in which I would like to work. Can you somehow tell me what to do that we can meet these conditions there? So I was at 35, I was being more on my own terms, and I knew that I could do things and that people would need these things. I was selling myself.
Yeah. Oh, it's clearly works. You are where you are now. And one of the other things I encourage you to think about before we came on the conversation as well is what you're most proud of. What did you come up with there?
That was lovely to think about. And actually, I had something from my time in academia, because I quit this postdoc, was a 6-year postdoc role, and I quit it after 2 years. But I quit it in 2016, and in 2015, I was a keynote speaker at the conference with 500 people, and it was the Berlin Methods meeting, which is in the people who do qualitative research, it's a very prestigious, very nice conference, and I really enjoyed being that keynote speaker there, and on a qualitative approach that is very niche. And I thought that's nice that I can go out on a high. And this research I did on this very niche approach is still being quoted, and I still get some people who approach me and want me to do workshops in that. And so I think the little I did as a researcher has actually made a big impact, at least for the people who are interested in this specific topic. So I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of this portal against sexualized harassment that I created in 2020, because that's also still around. And that's something I always wanted when I was a researcher, that I could see an immediate impact and an immediate use case for what I did. And if you work against sexualized harassment, you never have to ask yourself, why are you doing it?
No, absolutely.
So the societal impact is immediately apparent. And that's also cool that they still have that.
Yeah.
On a related note, I'm also proud that everyone I've ever worked with would still be available as a networking contact, and has gotten a good impression of me, and that I left some things that are still there, basically.
That you've left a positive impact on the world, it sounds.
People still contact me sometimes, and I can also contact them. So that's nice. And that's also useful for my work right now, because people who are researchers who are now department chairs, for example, I can invite them as experts for our postdocs or for our tenure track staff. And That's very useful. And what
Yes.
I'm also proud of is this LinkedIn sideline I have, which is also how you found me, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. Why? What was it about LinkedIn that made you want to just go for it and start building a network there and posting?
We got an evaluation as a unit from external evaluators, and they said now is the time you should go on social media. And that really social media is where you could also service your target group, so to say. And so I took that and tried to do it strategically and read a short thing from an ad agency or from a marketing agency on how to do LinkedIn. And then I just did it. And then I thought, since I don't have a Facebook or an Instagram or anything, so that was basically my first foray into how to put a picture of yourself online and then have like it. So I think I just enjoyed the attention as well because I've no other social media. And then I could see, since I did it with a goal, I could see that this goal is being fulfilled, so that our researchers actually take notice of it. Researchers we maybe want to recruit also take notice of it. My colleagues take notice of it, and the people in the university who we engage with regularly started taking me more seriously. It had many positive benefits, and that's why I kept at it.
Yeah, oh, definitely. For anybody listening who isn't already connected with you on LinkedIn, I can definitely recommend going and finding Johanna there. We'll put the link to your profile in the show notes so people can come and connect with you there. You post really, like with this whole fun idea, yeah, you post some stuff that's perhaps a little bit out of the ordinary for LinkedIn. So definitely worth a visit.
Yeah, and it's also a way to maybe shape the research culture a little bit through conversations, although posting stuff on the internet isn't probably the way to make a big impact on a structural level. But I think people who read it feel seen and they get a different message than the ones I got when I was a postdoc, and that must be worth something.
Yeah.
So
I think, well, change starts with people, doesn't it? It starts with people deciding that they want things to be different. And sometimes you have to start having those conversations first, or planting the seeds, planting the ideas before change actually happens. So I think it's useful. I think it's changing things, maybe just a little bit, but it's definitely changing things. So, speaking of changing things, I do like to ask my guests, if you had a magic wand, what would you change about the world that you work in?
also a very difficult question.
Yeah, that's why I love it.
I put down make it more collaborative and less hierarchical. So make academia maybe more like in the spirit of the Dutch universities. They have a slogan that's called room for everyone's talent. That would mean a little bit of the loosening of the different staff categories and just thinking in terms of the shared mission of a university and how everyone can contribute to the shared mission. And that means also everyone can take the organizational development into their own hands. So everyone gets rewarded and acknowledged for the things they do for their institution. So that would mean professors take on the mentoring and don't see it as a burden in the fulfillment of all the other things that need to be achieved. That means research support gets together with established academics and co-creates the institutions. That means technicians are recognized. That means PhD candidates are recognized, and they all get into how to create these structures. Basically, though universities are democratic institutions and they already have the different committees in which you do that, just to see that being more rewarded and just to see that spirit maybe more, and that people don't feel that they need to look down on someone and put someone down just to maintain their own position. It's very naive, but I think you sort of learn to move through these hierarchies by insisting on these spaces which are exclusive, and that thereby you are in the inner circle and you are creating an outer circle and you're trained to do it through many instances.
Yeah, I think, as you say, it's you say maybe naive, but it is a magic wand, so you're allowed to dream. But yeah, I think it is really interesting that we're trying to. It's almost baked into the whole idea of a university that it is to some extent exclusive. It's like you have to be really clever or really special or whatever to go to university, and it's still seen as that within society. But then that just, as you say, reinforces some of these barriers and hierarchies, which are yeah, definitely standing in the way of making progress in some of the ways that I think we need to. But yes, so that sounds like an excellent use of the Research Adjacent Magic Wand.
Oh, thank you.
Just thinking about wrapping up our conversation. So, yeah, so the best place to find you online then is LinkedIn.
Yes, LinkedIn. And we also regularly do interview series. Sometimes it's interviews with postdocs about their journeys after the stint with us. And sometimes it's interviewing people from the University of Graz who have also research experience and now work with researchers. So that would be the library open access professionals, the gender equality professionals, the research managers, research development professionals. And these interviews are always archived on our website, and most of them are in our blog, which is the RCC blog, and you could post a link to that. And that has up to 124 or 130 entries already, small snippets that would be an archive of everything I've ever posted on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Oh, well, that sounds like a really useful resource, because that sounds essentially quite like Research Adjacent, but just within University of Graz. Yeah, fantastic. We'll get a link for that and put it in the show notes as well. And yeah, so thank you so much for coming along and sharing your story and sharing a bit about what things are like in Austria. It's fascinating.
Thank you, Sarah. That was so great to get given the space.
Thanks for listening to Research Adjacent. If you're listening in a podcast app, please check you're subscribed and then use the links in the episode description to find full show notes and to follow the podcast on LinkedIn or Instagram. You can also find all the links and other episodes at www.researchadjacent.com. Research Adjacent is presented and produced by Sarah McCluskey, and the theme music is by Lemon Music Studios on Pixabay. And you, yes you, get a big gold star for listening right to the end. See you next time.